Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the Power community and all the Power Rangers that are going to be present at the Scottish Summit today and tomorrow. It's just so unfortunate that we didn't be there in person, but guess what? With the power of Microsoft technology, I'm working remotely with Scottish Summit, making this presentation available to you all. But what are we going to talk about today? We are going to look at how to build Microsoft Booking clone with Power Platform. That's what we're going to look at. But we're going to take this differently. Rather than taking technical things, explaining technical things, what we're going to do today is we are going to use a user case story to go through the whole solution. I have a story for us to look at, but let's look at the requirement here. So, what's the requirement? One of the biggest financial institutions in Africa is looking for a solution to host their first ever virtual career fair. I was so happy when they told me that they want to use technology every step of the way for the following persona candidates. So they are the ones who are going to be the main beneficiary of this solution. So those who are going to register for the career fair, the panelists, those who are going to review the applications and then screen them. Then we are going to look at the recruiters, those who are actually going to have the interview session with these people, and also the human resource. They are the backbone of the whole project, the project owners. So this is what we're going to use to drive the whole discussion. Now let's look at the technicalities. They want to have a platform that can host a live event for 5,000 attendees. I know some solutions are coming to your mind, right? But before we go there, they also want the candidates to register for the career fair. And to do this registration, they are going to have the following. They want them to give us basic information about themselves. Could it be date of birth, name, level of education, all those ones? They want those things. Now they want candidates to upload their CV, especially preferably PDF, and no more than 2 megabytes, so that they can have this and review the application. Now they also want the candidate to select an undisclosed number of soft skills and also technical skills. If it's disclosed, then we actually beating the system. So they're measuring the candidates on the number of soft skills and technical skills they have. So all that, these are the things that they were looking out for from the attendees. And they came to us that we need a solution that can handle this. Now let's look at the screening process. They want a solution to automatically screen the registrations that are coming in based on some criteria. Look at the first one. Only 18 years and above are allowed to apply. If you are not, we are going to we are going to disqualify your application. Now look at another one. Candidates who select 3 soft skills and 2 technical skills, they qualify. But if you select less than that, you're disqualified. And there should only be 1 application for every candidate. We're going to look at this in details, okay? But how are we going to do that? I know some solutions are coming to your mind, right? Let's look at the final requirements here. Now, on the interview day, they're looking at the live event that we are going to host for them to host 5,000 attendees. Candidates should be allowed to ask questions via chat. Recording should be available for both the candidate and the recruiting staff, hence the human resource. We should have separate interview rooms for all of the departments. We should be able to interview the candidates within 10-minute slots, so they all have 10-minute slots. How do we inform these people about it? There should be a lobby to admit the candidates, and we should have a place for them to add their feedback for each of the candidates. There should be a feedback form for the candidates so that they can also give feedback on the whole journey. Okay, that shouldn't be employees, that should be all candidates. Feedback form should be sent to all candidates. Anyway, now at this stage, I know you were thinking of some of the products that we could use. What do you have in mind? What do you think we can use for this? What are you thinking of? I wish this was the auditorium so that I could ask all of you and we brainstorm about a solution before we look at what we build for them. Anyway, did you think of the following? Forms, Microsoft Booking, SharePoint, Teams, PowerApps, or even more? Which of them did you think of? Anyway, but look at some limitations that came up when we're brainstorming about the solution. When we're at the initial stage of the requirement gathering, what came to mind was that we should use Microsoft Forms for the registration, taking the registration details. Just a laudable idea, but there were some restrictions. This is going to be an external link, an external registration page, not for internal usage. So uploading of files in the Microsoft Forms is very restrictive when it comes to that from external lines. So Microsoft Forms wouldn't be a good idea there. And we also have to do some validations and customizations to the form. I'll show you in a bit what those validations and customizations are. Okay. Microsoft Forms was not the best of the solutions for us to use. Then what is it? Now, the second part has to do with interview the candidates, booking for a slot with the interviewers. Yes, Microsoft Booking came to mind. We actually started a free Microsoft Booking. Because with Microsoft Booking, you can let's have a look at it. So on my screen here, you can see that this is the Microsoft Booking Setup Service page. We created services for each of the area of the department. Okay, and this is how it's going to look to the user. So interview session, I come here and select the area of expertise. This is the date, and look at the time. So what the team did was that they were able to break down the time into the 10-minute interval with Microsoft Booking, as you can see over here. Wonderful, right? Good. Now, here comes the hurdle. One of the biggest hurdle we had to overcome. The customer requirement, and I admire them for that requirement, was that the candidates already registered with the platform. So we have the data of the candidate. So why should the candidate register on the registration portal? I'll show you the registration portal very soon. But when booking, after the registration, why should the customer provide a name and email if we already have the name and email? That's legit, right? Yeah. But how are we going to do this? The team brainstormed. And what came to mind was that why don't we pass the variables, the data to the URL so that anytime the person accesses the link, the URL will carry this data and pass it to this specific fields on this page. That's what came to mind. Right? How are we going to do that? But unfortunately, Microsoft Booking doesn't have that capability right now. Maybe in the future, maybe not. So we couldn't use these scripting codes on this page. And it broke our hearts that we couldn't use Microsoft Booking for this. What is the way forward? What should we do? All right. So this is what we came up with. I'll take you to all of that shortly. But let's come back to the presentation. Now, enough of the requirements. Yes, enough of the requirements. I want to ask you this question. Do you know of a good requirement gathering framework designed for Microsoft business application projects? Do you know any? I wish we were in auditorium, so I take your inputs. But for me, Kahil is one of the masterminds when it comes to gathering requirements. He has a special course on requirements gathering. You can check it out on danikahil.com and go through it very well, because he actually helped us so that we cannot go out of scope. And when you adopt that, you do very well with gathering requirements. You'll be able to scope your requirements very well. You're able to get what the customer actually needs. At times they tell you they need this, but that's not what they need, right? And they have an idea what they want. But with this, you can streamline what exactly the requirement should be. And look at this. It takes you through these 6 processes. Introduce, prepare, reflect. Then we have validate, adapt, and act on it. Wonderful steps. So take your time, go through this, and sign up with him. You can check him out, Danny Kahil, on LinkedIn, and speak with him, and he will help you through it. Okay. That's for the requirement. Now come back to me. Come back to me. Now, the registration form. How are we going to do this? Registration form. So I'm going to show you what we did for the registration form. So on this registration form, as you can see, yes, this is Contoso, Virtual Career Fair. So for conclusive virtual career fair, we have to actually build a whole data schema to manage this. We build a table, and in that table, the following fields were there. You can see some of the fields are the ones that you can see here with various data types. Okay, don't worry about the technical. I know and I know that's something that you could do. So in here, we want to identify first name, last name, date of birth, email, phone number, other things, as you can see. Okay, so we built a main form from the what's the name, the table. Okay, and what we did beyond this was that we use portal management to build a basic form. Initially, we thought of using the web form, but just to break the customer journey into one for usability, we use a basic form to put everything in here. So the basic form, as you can see, is what we have here. Sorry, this is the form, the main form from the career fair registration table. All right, with all this it's all. Now I explain why you see this long list here, but you don't see this long list over here. What is it? Yes, here you are. You don't see that long list over here. So on this form, aside the basic data, you can see that we have this, right? The CV upload. Now let's talk about the date of birth first. Well, one of the requirements was that if you are not beyond 18, you cannot register for this virtual career fair, right? Okay. So what we did was that we built a workflow. Look at the workflow. The workflow basically is going to do the following. It's going to check for date of birth, okay? If the date of birth is greater than this date, it's going to throw an exception. So you cannot submit the form if your date of birth is beyond this date. Should we try? So look at something. Let's look at this. So I'm selecting my date of birth to actually be, in fact, let's do 2022. Okay. Now, in case I want to submit this, it throws an exception that my date of birth is not what? Probably good. So you must be 18 years or above to submit this. So this synchronous workflow was working in the background to validate that requirement. And we're good. Now, what other requirement are we going to look at? Here. When it comes here, sorry, before that, let's come over here. The level of study, okay? We actually built a flow in the back end that's able to match the level of study. These are the options: technical, diploma, masters, and bachelors. So if you don't belong to masters or diploma or bachelors, when you submit your application, it's going to be disqualified. Okay. And another requirement is this. These are area of expertise. We use choice table and given all the department in here. So the area of expertise the candidate is interested in, just select it over here. Then you're good to go. We'll show you those flows very soon. Now, another main hurdle, okay, is how do we enable this PDF upload, the file upload? By default, Power Portal didn't give us that. So what we did is that on the basic form configuration, on this basic form configuration, all right, when you come over to the basic form that we define the portal management, we're able to enable file upload here. We're able to enable file upload here. And it saves the data, the file that is uploaded to this table called notes. And I'll show you in a bit how we're able to use that extensively, how we're able to extract the data from this data table. Okay. All right. Good. Now let's come to the main header of the whole flow. The customer gave a very good requirement. The requirement is allow the user to register once. Now, this is just a form the user is filling. There's nothing like user management. So there's nothing like user management that you create an account. When you create an account again, it tells you you already have an account now. This is just a form. Portal forms. How are we going to do this? That was the main header. But I got a very good support. Saurabh actually helped with this. He and his partner brought out an article on avoiding duplicate records on PowerApps Portal. You can check it out. I'll pass on the link so that you can check it out. You can check him also out on LinkedIn. And he actually held over some calls. So I really appreciate that. So what we did was that we built this flow, also a synchronous workflow. What will happen is that we are using the unique value of email. So it will check the table before you submit, before you click on the submit button. This will check the table to see if this record exists, the email that you're passing as the registrant. So if it already exists, what will happen is that there he built this utility flow, okay? And what it does is that we're able to set in some parameters. The parameters basically are able to check the email against the table. Okay. Now, if that email exists, it's going to throw you an exception that you have already registered for the event. So we didn't have to implement a user management just to do this. Portals was able to allow us to do this seamlessly with this workflow. Anyway, sorry about that. I think that is taking long, but that's unusual. Anyway, so that's what we did to prevent duplicate registration. So we had unique registrations from this very portal. Now, enough of the forms or of the registration forms, right? Good. So what happens when I submit this? Yes, I get this. Yes, I get this response in here. Don't mind the French, okay? Don't mind the French anyway. I'm still learning how to speak French very well. I think it's loaded good. It's loaded now. Good. So we actually built an XML. Here's it. Is the XML that's going to search and pull out these fields, email, okay, and name. And that's what we use to merge the table. It searches the table. If your email exists, it prevents you from registering again. Okay. So that's how we did the registration. Now, when the registration goes through, it goes to the current registration table. Okay. But when it goes to all the validations I spoke to you about, this is the wonderful flow we built in the back end. Okay. So now we've done a lot about the registration bit. Now, after the registration, what's next? Now, this is specific to this specific customer. What they requested for is they requested for a portal or an app. In that app, they'll get to see all the CVs and registrations that are coming in. And then they'll go through them. If it's okay, voila, they'll accept the person. So what we did here was that we were able to design a Power App. So as you can see here, that's the Power App. And on the left, you see a list of all the candidates coming in there. Now, we embedded a PDF reader, the PowerApps PDF reader into it. So they can preview any PDF while reviewing the person's registration. So for example, this very one, Russell, I select Russell, then I view, wow, the PDF reader is telling me my CV is this. My CV is really nice, don't you think so? So you can see define the strategy. Anyway, about. So now that I have the CV, after reviewing it, and I want to accept. Now, the customer wanted this logic to be implemented. When 3 people out of the 5 panelists accept, then the registration goes through and a person can now book for an interview. So 3 panelists out of 5. So if we have 2 panelists accepting out of the 5, we don't qualify. But if at least 3 panelists accept, or 4 or 5, voila, you qualify for the next stage. So for this one, all I will do is that I'll click on accept. So accept, and I do yes. Now imagine I'm the second person, so I'm doing it again. Imagine I'm the 3rd panelist. I'll do it again. Voila. And what it does, as you can see, this person now gets accepted. Voila, the person now is gone. The person is no more in my list because the person has been moved to the recruiter screen where he will get into it. The person then gets a link. Now we are coming to the main topic. The main topic is how do we build a booking clone, Microsoft booking clone with a Power Platform. Yeah. So what we did was that, as I said earlier on, we built a form, and this is the form. So the candidate gets a link in the mail that click on this link to book your time. So this is the Microsoft Booking page we have built to compete with Microsoft Booking. Anyway, which one looks nicer? All right, I will still give the credit to Microsoft. You have some wonderful UI there. So on this page, what you're seeing here is a place for you to select the time. And you remember the requirement we discussed earlier. The requirement that says that the name and email of the candidate should be passed automatically in a URL. So that because we already have the customer data, we don't want the customer to type in the name and email as we see here. Just look here. So on the Microsoft Booking, you have to select the date, the time, and you have to type in their name again. The customer doesn't want that. So what they requested is, since we already have the data, automatically should pre-populate this specific booking form, the custom booking form we came up with. So what we did was that when you look in here, the booking link that we sent to them via mail is customized to that specific user. So we pass using some JavaScript, we pass the email. So when looking in the browser, you can see the email, right? Good. So we pass the email to the URL. We pass even the name to the URL. And then we pass the area of expertise. That is why this is pre-populated. So when I do a refresh, it will give me the same thing because this is pre-populated. Good. So this is unique for every application. Now I go ahead and select the time that I want to book. Good. So here you can see that all the times that are available are showing here. Okay. So I can then go ahead and then select, for example, I'm going to select 10 o'clock. Then I do select this. So this is the experience, just like Microsoft Booking. So look at it, just like Microsoft Booking, that we have the page for a specific department or a specific service. We also build this page for this specific department. All right. Then you can select the time that you are coming in, and we have fulfilled the requirement from the customer to automatically pass the registration details to this very page. Then what do? You go ahead and what? Submit. And when you submit, that time that you have booked is going to be temporarily deleted so that it wouldn't be available for the next person to book. So that's how we went ahead and implemented the Microsoft Booking platform. And just so wonderful that when we roll it out for the customer, we had the prospective for us to have 1,005 registrations coming in. We're close, we got 1,001 registrations. The solution that we built for automatic screening was able to screen 644 people, passed the screening, the automatic screening. 440 something people were rejected by the system because one, they didn't have the soft skills, and their level of education was no bachelor's or master's. All right. So the second level of screening was what the panelists did. Okay. So through all that, 88 people were recruited to the whole process. You can imagine a lot of people who even came for the interview. So they had to book for the 2 days. They did the booking. And the beautiful thing we also did is, let me show you the flow that we use for the booking. We extensively use the Microsoft Booking API. You can check on the Microsoft Booking API documentation. They are very enormous. And when you look here, first, we created services. For example, the service that we spoke about earlier, this specific service. We created services for each of the departments. So in the flow, guess what we did? We use the get function to get a specific service. So this is going to get all the services. Then we tailor it down to one specific service. Now, this is where it got interesting here. This is where we call the API that's actually going to do the booking. Obviously, you need to authenticate. So we have our access token here for the authentication. Okay, but look at the endpoint. The endpoint is booking businesses, the specific service we want to book, then appointment. That is the call to action here. Okay, now when we are done with this, we are passing an output of this specific object. Sorry, what do we have included in this JSON object? In here, you could see the start time and the end time. The start time preferably is the one that has been selected on the form, this very form. And you remember I selected 10, yes. So this is what is going to be passed to this, okay? And we converted this to the date time format, okay? So I remember we did the conversions into the date time format, as you can see here. Good. Now, remember that one of the requirements, the interview session is supposed to be 10 minutes. So what we did is we used the expression add minutes, okay? Add minute to add 10 to any time that we have selected, okay? So 10 minutes will be added. So in the person's Microsoft Teams or the person's Outlook calendar, the person will get an invitation for the interview, and it is 10 minutes. So for the time I'm selecting 10 o'clock. The person is going to get what? 10 as the time for the interview. Was honestly good? Yeah. So this automatically did this for all those who register. For any time you select, it will add 10 minutes. And the JSON have it over here as the end time. So the output of this is what we have as the end time. And the time zones are also represented. And automatically we're able to pass the email to the customer in here. Okay. So the email and the name, because we need to send the email to the person telling the person you have been selected for this. Okay. And then we include a name because we need to address the person. Okay. So this is what we use the Microsoft Booking API for. So the API did a lot of the work that the Microsoft Booking app is able to do. And this is the specific service that we are looking for. So after that, we created an event. All right, we created the event and added the specific people in there. We added the specific people in there. So this is how we implemented how the booking of the appointments can be done on this platform. And I was so amazed at the results. All the registrations were coming in. We had a different portal for the recruiters where you're able to see the times that the people are booked, okay, and then the dates as well. And then remember, we added the PDF reader to the recruiters while they are seeing while they're having a session with a person on Teams. We imported the app into Teams. Okay, so while they're having an interview, they can quickly go into the app and add their reviews. Okay, so this was how we were to implement this solution, and it was amazing. The experience with the people were amazing, especially for the candidates also. They had a very seamless way of interacting with the interviews. So back to the scope, this is how, and this is how we have implemented Microsoft Booking Clone with the Power Platform. Here is the Power Platform, and here's the portals. Now it is Power Pages, and then Power Automate, where the Power Automate gives us the control, okay, to replicate the Microsoft Booking actions in this. And I wish the Power Pages came earlier, because in one of the reviews I saw from the Microsoft build, they actually have online scheduling in there. I'm here to explore this to see how we can use this for further use cases. It's good to have you on this wonderful session. I really want to have your feedback from this. What other use cases do you think we can use what we just showed you today for? And then how can we extend it to our customers, fellow partners? This is what I have for you. Thank you. See you soon.